Ah, good old baseball. As American as apple pie. These names are a little strange, though. V2. Wasn't there a Nazi missile with that name? Nah, it's probably just a coincidence. What the? Himmler? Goering? Goebbels? What the f***? I recently took a business trip to the city of Kumamoto, way down on the southern island of Kyushu in Japan. This area is famous for raw horse sashimi, a giant active volcano, and a somewhat perverted mascot named Kumamon. But I wanted to check out this arcade called the Oe Game Center. Despite the location being a residential neighborhood, and it being a weekday, this place actually had a surprising number of people inside. Like lots of retro arcades, it seems to be kept afloat mostly by the fighting game folks. Those guys are doing the Lord's work. One whole half of the arcade is dedicated to fighting games like Street Fighter, Third Strike, and King of Fighters. And this is where most of the regulars were. As you can see from the whiteboard, they host regular events and tournaments, and there's also a space for people to come and play their own games. The other side was a mix of old Astro City cabinets and retro slot machines. Like a lot of these retro arcades, they've reduced the price down to 50 yen per play, which I think is the wrong move. 50 yen is not going to bring any new customers in, and the kind of people who want to come to retro arcades in the first place are happy to pay double or triple the price for the premium experience. But what do I know? I'm not an arcade owner. About half of the cabinets in this arcade were running multi-game boards, so I flipped through until I found something I liked, which was Super Baseball 2020 by SNK. I used to play the Super Nintendo version with my cousin, and we would get so frustrated with the robot pitchers that we would imitate their faces whenever we taunted each other. Here's his stupid face now. Let's have a closer look at this robot sprite again. When I was a kid, I was sure that these parts were the eyes, and that this part was the mouth. But now as an adult, when I look back on it, I'm pretty sure that these are just screws, and that he has just a flat top. Look at him batting. You can see that he doesn't really have any kind of head at all. So maybe he wasn't mocking us after all. Nah, they're definitely taunting me. My cousin and I also used to draw comic books together when we were kids, and we decided to name our comic book company after this character. We called it Big Ugly Robot Comics, and I kept using that name for everything I did well into my adult life. It's the only game besides Chrono Trigger that I actually own a physical cartridge for. This game is sort of confounding. In some ways, they've totally improved the rules of baseball. The foul zone is really small, and the stands are covered by a glass shield so that the ball is in play for much longer. The home run zone is only in center field, but there's also a jump zone which launches your fielders into the air to catch potential home runs. There's robotic players, and the humans have jetpacks and bionic arms to compete with them. It should be the best game ever. But all along the way, there are tons of questionable choices. Like the fact that fielders only throw to the closest fielder, which means that the pitcher often gets in the way of any double plays. Basemen never leave their base, which is super frustrating when a ball rolls inches from their feet. Worst of all is that the scoreboard only allows 2 digits, so if you somehow manage to score over 100 runs, your score resets to 0. And the most baffling of choices is that there's a secret team at the end called the Cosmopolitan Monoliths, whose players are named after famous Nazis and Japanese war criminals. After doing a bit of research, I don't believe that it was SNK who made this weird choice, as it doesn't really appear in the arcade version, only in the SNES version, which was ported by a company called Monolith. Coincidentally, this team is called the Cosmopolitan Monoliths, so I think there might be a connection there. And before you go blaming the localization team, I checked the Japanese version and the names are the same. There's Himura pitching, Goebbels batting, there's even Class A war criminal Hideki Tojo. All fingers point towards Monolith, the Japanese company in charge of porting this game. Either way, it went totally over my head when I was a kid, and I never even got that far in the game anyway. Still, it's a strange choice for sure. One of the reasons I love arcades like this is because of the memories that they bring up. Memories of a specific time and place with specific smells and sounds. When I play Tetris, I can still hear my uncle's voice in my head, even though he died 30 years ago. I can imagine my cousin making that big ugly robot face at me. But this time, I also got to make some new memories. One of my coworkers who I dragged with me got some coins from a slot machine and he used them to buy some dagashi snacks for us. He's 10 years younger than me and born and raised in Kyoto, but any differences in age, culture, or language were easily overcome as we shared Japanese snacks and played old video games like a couple of school kids. Decades after these games came out, they're still creating memories. Unfortunately, 2020 has already come and gone, and we never got the robot pitchers that this game promised. But hey, we got a global pandemic that year, so we weren't exactly empty-handed. If there are any fans of Super Baseball 2020 out there, let me know in the comments. Are you a fan of the SNES version? Or do you prefer the one without the Nazi references that was made for the Sega Genesis? It might not have Nazis in it, but it has landmines in the outfield. Maybe you're a purist who only wants to play the arcade version made by SNK. Or maybe you're a true collector and you have the ultra rare version that came out for the Neo Geo CD. Either way, I would love to hear from you because this game shaped my life much more than I ever expected it to.